If you've ever played cricket, or even just watched it, you've heard it a million times. Get your bat up straight. It's like rule number one. But what if I told you that the very best players in the world, the legends of the game, are doing something totally different? What if everything we've been taught about the perfect backlift is, well, just wrong? Let's take a look at the data, because it might be time to tear a page right out of the coaching manual.
So this is basically the whole debate in one picture. On the left, you've got the classic textbook technique that every coach drills into you. The bat goes straight back, nice and tidy. But on the right, that's what so many of the pros are actually doing, this more looped, lateral motion. It's two completely different ways of hitting a ball. But as we're about to see, one of them seems to be the path to greatness.
All right, so before we start challenging all the conventional wisdom, let's make sure we're on the same page. We need to understand what the traditional coaching manual actually says is the correct way to bat.
And this is it. It's called the straight backlift. The whole idea is pretty simple, right? It's the shortest path from point A to point B. You lift that bat straight back toward the keeper, keep the face of the bat closed, and then swing straight through the line of the ball. It's clean, it's simple, and it's what's taught pretty much everywhere. But then there's this, the lateral backlift. Instead of going straight back, the bat actually lifts out toward the slips or gully, often with an open face. You know, think of a player like the amazing and maybe a little weird Steve Smith. It looks unorthodox, for sure, and it raises a huge question.
So here it is. Do the best cricketers in the world actually do what the theory tells them to do? That is the absolute core of what we're digging into today, and believe me, the answer is pretty fascinating. Okay, so let's get out of the world of theory and into hard data. We're not talking about some coach's opinion here. We're talking about actual biomechanical analysis of some of the greatest players to ever hold a bat.
And boom, here's the first bombshell. A study looked at a whole bunch of the greatest batsmen of all time and found that a massive 70% of them did not use that textbook straight backlift. That's right, the majority of the legends, we're talking Don Bradman on, used a lateral, loopy backlift.
And if you think that's wild, it gets even more extreme in the modern game. Get this, a 2016 analysis of IPL batsmen found that 90%, that's 9 out of every 10 players, used a lateral backlift. In the fastest, most powerful version of cricket, this supposedly wrong technique is basically the norm.
So, the big question is, why? What makes it so darn effective? Well, the research shows that batters who use a lateral backlift are way better at scoring all around the wicket. It also helps their stance and their footwork, often putting them in a more open position that lets them attack way more types of deliveries.
And this right here brings us to a massive paradox. If the best players in the world, past and present, are using this technique to absolutely dominate the game, why are coaches actively teaching young players not to do it?
Okay, you have to see this. Researchers went and looked at young players who had never, ever had any formal coaching, and what they found was incredible. 75% of them, naturally, without anyone telling them to, adopted a lateral backlift. It seems to be the body's instinctive way of hitting a ball hard and well. But then look what happens after the coaches get involved. The numbers completely flip on their head. Among the kids who have been coached, now 71% use the straight textbook backlift. The natural, effective technique is literally being replaced by the one in the book.
Just let that sink in for a second. We are actively coaching the natural instinct out of young players. The very technique that all the data suggests is superior is being undone, and only the most talented, most successful players eventually find their way back to it on their own when they reach the top. It's crazy. This kind of reveals the final piece of the story here, the journey of a cricketer's technique. The data shows this really clear pattern of how this so-called unorthodox backlift makes a huge comeback as players climb the ladder.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Look at the trained adolescents, the kids who've been coached. Only 29% of them use a lateral backlift. But then you jump up to the semi-pro or county level, and that number climbs to around 40%. And then, bam, at the international level, it skyrockets to 75%. The better the player, the more likely they are to use the wrong technique.
So, the takeaway here is pretty hard to argue with. As cricketers get better, as the competition gets fiercer, the lateral backlift doesn't just show up, it becomes the dominant method for the absolute best performers in the sport.
So, what does all this mean? Should we just toss out the coaching manual and tell every kid to start batting like Steve Smith? Well, the science suggests it's actually a bit more nuanced than that. It means we might need to rethink what a perfect swing even is.
You see, the really key insight from all this research is that the backlift doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's just one part of a whole system. This body segment model shows us that you have to look at everything working together, keeping your head still, the position of your shoulders and your hips, the angle of the bat face, your footwork, your grip. It's all connected.
And that's the real shift in thinking here. We can't just obsess over one tiny part of the swing. A lateral backlift might be amazing because it sets up a more powerful turn of the hips and shoulders, but it only works if it's connected to everything else the batter is doing.
Which leaves us with one final massive question. The evidence seems overwhelming that the world's best just don't bat the way the textbook says they should. They bat the way their bodies instinctively want to move to generate power. So instead of coaching that instinct out of them, shouldn't we start coaching to make it even better? Isn't it finally time to rewrite the manual?